what you see, like a battery. I'm staying charged on my feet, I'm like a factory. Dropping lines like an assembly. I'm staying on point, it's my strategy.
How you doing, guys? Welcome to ZukaTube, and today we're going to be reviewing the movie Morbius. This just came out April 1st of this year, and the summary here, right? It says, dangerously ill with a rare blood disorder and determined to save others from the same fate, Dr. Morbius attempts a desperate gamble. While at first it seems to be a radical success, a darkness inside of him is soon unleashed. Okay, so Morbius was first depicted as an enemy of Spider-Man back in like 1971. And it's interesting to see finally a live action on screen depiction. We saw like obviously an animated version in the 90s Spider-Man series, which was funny because it was a little bit of a censored version, you know, with his little hand suckers. But I'm going to play this trailer. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. You know, I got a couple little clips and some things to talk about. I'll give you my review, and then we'll do the spoiler section at the end. Let's get right into this trailer. Ooh, spooky wookie. Man, creepy looking, huh? Real dark, cool attacks on like a boat.
What have you done?
I was trying to help people. But the cure.
But I hang out with bats.
It's a curse.
Michael.
I have powers that can only be described as superhuman.
Ooh.
But there's a cost. Now, I face a choice. To hunt. And consume blood. Or die.
We all have monsters within us. It's up to us to control it.
Very cool looking effects with the kind of weird smokiness filtered around it.
Michael Morbius.
Jared Leto doing another villain kind of
Been
thing.
given a gift. Not exactly. Time to let go
Let me
of what
see
you
Michael
used to be.
Keaton culture.
Discover who you're meant to be.
All our lives we've lived with death. Why shouldn't they know what it feels like for a change? Just accept who you are.
The bad guy.
Morbius.
Now I feel like that's a pretty decent,
robust.
Pilates helps.
you know, I feel like it's a pretty decent trailer. Like overall, the fights, the little like effects, the kind of spookiness of it, it's a solid trailer for the most part, and I feel like it kind of lays out the general summary of the movie that they have listed. Obviously, the one thing they don't tell you is there obviously is a villain. You know, there's a love interest, that kind of stuff. But in the beginning of this movie, right, it shows basically a sick Morbius. You know, he grew up with a blood disease, and he's arriving by helicopter at a bat cave, you know, and he cuts the center of his hand like an idiot. I hate that people always do that. Why are you cutting the center of your goddamn hand? Like, cut your arm, or like somewhere where you're not gonna like be dealing with it constantly. It's never gonna heal. It's gonna be getting infected. Like, every time somebody needs blood for something, they're like, let me cut the center of my hand in a movie. Dude, just cut like the side of your arm or something. I don't know. Or your elbow. Like, people cut their elbows all the time, and like those are annoying, but they heal. They're out of the way enough. I don't know, man. Or at least like the top of your hand, maybe. Like, you still get a decent amount of blood at the top of your hand. Like, I don't know. But either way, I don't want to go too far into that. It's ridiculous, right? But he calls the bats to him, and he gets bitten, right? And it flashbacks to him and his best friend Milo as kids, and they're both together sick. And Morbius is very intelligent, and he gets sent to a different school. They show he gets bullied and stuff. It flashes to a modern day. He wins an award. He kind of ignores it. You know, he's still working while he's very sick. He's working on merging bat and human DNA. You know, while he's helping a patient, his trial on a mouse shows signs of working, so he decides to go visit his friend Milo and tells him the news on what he's working on and propositions him to take some chances, you know, on investing in some experiments since they don't have much time, right? And he goes out on international waters on a boat to basically run trials on himself. And this is the basic intro to where, you know what's going to happen after this point, right? Now, one thing I got to say is it's almost like they show you two different origins, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me right off the bat, where they're showing you in the trailer like he's going to like touch these bats and the bats are going to bite him and he's going to turn into this Morbius guy. But at the same time in the trailer and in there's a couple different trailers, they'll show you like him obviously needing to experiment on himself and like then turn into it. So it's weird. Like, and I just got to show this little clip where they're almost showing you two potential ways he could have turned into Morbius right off the bat in the beginning of this movie. That, you know, it kind of is confusing and weird that they even throw the bat thing in there. I'm just gonna say that. Like look at this. I put this little split screen. Like, okay, so he's doing experiments on the boat. You know, he's gonna treat himself and everything with this, you know, serum he developed. But then at the same time, they show him, like, while he's sick, going and attracting bats to him at a cave. Like, and I know I put the little music in there just for fun. But really? And the one thing I got to say is with the Jared Leto character, they don't really do any prosthetics on his face when he's a normal human. And in the comic books, they definitely show in his origin, he definitely has a very obscure look to himself, and he's very ashamed of himself for the way he looks. And then on top of it, when he does this and converts into Morbius, it just makes it that much more ridiculous. Like, if you look at the difference here between human form to Morbius in the comics versus in the movie, obviously they're going to have like a pretty boy kind of aspect to it, right? Now, the whole transformation and everything that they show you in the trailers and him turning into Morbius and attacking people, it looks great. I just got to show another clip of that. I love all of that stuff. Him being Morbius and like kind of jumping around and flashing around looks very cool. So let me just play that. Bam, breaks through the glass. And this is where you can see like Matrix that shit. He looks like a vampire Keanu Reeves at that point, dodging bullets like the Matrix.
Move it! What the hell is that thing?
I think it's a little weirder that he doesn't have like as distinctive vampire teeth and just kind of like sharp teeth in general. I'm not as big of a fan of that. But I do like the look of it. I probably would have liked to have seen it more almost like prosthetics just throughout that stuff rather than CG. But that's my own personal opinion, right? But basically what ends up happening is after he does these trials and changes, he doesn't want to harm his love interest Martine that they show. And they have a little bit of a diversion from the comic book situation. Like, yes, he does go on international waters in the comics to do this on himself, but in the comics he does it with a good friend of his, and his love interest is there but doesn't see what happens, and he kind of jumps ship after he realizes what he's become and what he's done, type of deal. But in this, he attacks a bunch of people. She's unconscious. He sees what happened to her, and then he's like, I gotta get out of here, type of deal. And obviously his friend Milo sees what happens, goes to him, realizes that something happened and he developed some kind of cure. And this is where the main conflict comes in, where basically he thinks it's a curse, and at the same time his friend Milo doesn't care. He's like, I want to live one way or another. Like, we have to do something. We have to work on this together. We could figure it out. And he's obviously flipping out. And that's where the villain is created. Now, obviously, they're trying to base him and make him into like some kind of different version of the villain Hunger. And I'm not a huge fan of their approach with the change with this character. But overall, like, it feels minor in all the trailers compared to like how much of that is actually in the movie. This is like an actual villain throughout it, and it kind of has that feel of the first Venom movie. Overall, the effects are fairly solid. I would have rather seen a little bit more, obviously, like practical effects than just CG for everything. Especially, I feel like with a lot of the Marvel movies out there, when it gets to the villain fight, it's just like 3D people kind of flailing around and about in these crazy scenes, and it's not as much like practical effects and wire effects, and it doesn't feel as real. Like the CG just isn't quite there, and it still looks good. I mean, it's enjoyable to watch, but also with how violent you saw with the recent Doctor Strange movie, you figure a movie about a vampire would be a little bit more gory, or there would be some like decent amount of blood in this. You're not going to see that in this one. This is quite toned down. Now, basically, before I get into any spoilers, I want to give you my review. I would say overall, this is another swing and a miss by Marvel. Sony, I feel like, has done a good job with some of their stuff, but at the same time, you can tell this movie has been held back quite a bit. I mean, quite a lot of stuff they show you in the trailers available doesn't even make it to this movie. That's one thing I'm going to say right off the bat. Like, They do that a lot with Marvel stuff, but it doesn't do it in a way that benefits the film. You know, I'm not gonna spoil any of that right away until the spoiler section after this. But overall, I'm gonna give this movie a solid 6.5. It's just mediocre. It's okay. It had a lot of potential I feel like the first half isn't a bad movie. It's pretty decent. There's a couple things, obviously, that I have a problem with as far as the things that they change about the character. Like, they show in the trailers that he can change from human form to, like, Morbius. And I do not like that. That kind of Hulk aspect they show in some of the trailers where it's like, oh, don't make me hungry. Like, you won't like me when I'm hungry. Like, come on, man. Really? Like, when you're turned into Morbius, it's always been like this. Like, that's how you look now, and that's how you are, period. I do not like the aspect of changing the character into someone who can go back and forth depending on his level of anger or his level of hunger. It makes for a lot of like inconsistencies on stuff, especially if he can use a lot of his powers with or without changing. And I don't know. It doesn't feel as natural in the film. It makes things feel a little bit weird, and like you kind of, I don't know, you doubt like the even purpose of the transformation part of it. When he's angry, you feel like it should maybe only be something when he's really hungry, that he gets really primal, or I don't know. But either way, with that being said, yeah, 6.5 out of 10. I don't necessarily recommend this movie, but I feel like I haven't been recommending much of anything that Marvel has to offer lately. And I don't want to feel like I'm very biased, but I feel like if you're an avid comic reader, at least before maybe the year 2000, you know, then you're definitely going to feel some type of way about a lot of the stuff they've been putting out. And with that being said, let's get right into the spoiler section here. Spoilers. Okay, so one thing I gotta say is at the end, when they finally have the Morbius versus Hunger fights and stuff like that, you get to see some cool little scenes and everything, and I gotta say that's not bad, right? Like, and I'm just gonna play a little clip of that because I thought like some of those fights are kind of cool. But it also, to me, feels like tuned up version of like Underworld. But see that toning down and then all of a sudden they're out of the look and form. I don't like that. I think that's so weird. And okay, so like with that being said, at the end they have a fight. He basically hits Milo with this antibody and presumably he's dead, you know, but you never know for sure with that kind of stuff. And basically after that, he like, okay, so wait, before that happened, they're in a fight and he straight like Kamehamehas a ton of bats at the Milo character, at Hunger, right? Really? Ah, man, that was so weird. Like, he's literally doing the pose and everything, but with bats. Come on. Like, Jared Leto's character, like, as an actor, didn't say, like, what the hell are you doing? You're really going to make me sit here and do Dragon Ball Z moves with a pile of bats? I don't know, man. I don't really... It was so funny when I saw it. I just couldn't take it that seriously anymore at that point, right? But either way, he flies away with all the bats, you know, and they show Martine's turning. But, like, I'm just going to brush that off because they'll probably never get into that in any future movies or anything. Or maybe they will. Maybe they'll just get rid of Morbius and be like, hey, we could still have a female Morbius and whatever. But they show the multiverse break and Vulture ends up in a cell in Morbius's world and then he gets released. And they totally like have this ending scene where Vulture's in his universe, but it's like stupid mentions of Spider-Man, like he's kind of confused, but then there's no evidence of Spider-Man in this movie compared to even in the trailer. In the trailer, it seems like Spider-Man's a real character. Obviously, they show hints of villains in the Spider-Man universe, but they don't show anything about actual Spider-Man, you know? And they don't really show you which Spider-Man or anything like that, but they do hint it's obviously Tom Hardy's universe because they mentioned Venom. And now, obviously, Vulture's in this universe, so maybe they'll go to Andrew Garfield because Venom's already got his own actor, Topher Grace, in the Tobey Maguire one. And there's going to be a different one now for Tom Holland. So, I don't know. It's all over the place, and they kind of really fudged up the entire ending section there. That really feels out of place. It looks chopped up, like when you watch it, and I didn't go for any of the stuff they did with the movie, aside from like the first half of the movie. And I really wish they would have did a little bit more prosthetic work rather than all CG work on Morbius himself. But with that being said, still 6.5 out of 10. I don't recommend this one, but who knows? Maybe they'll bring him into some future movies and he'll be decent in them. I did like seeing some vampire stuff and some spooky stuff and some cool fights, but otherwise, man, I feel like you're never going to get that cool like Spider-Man Blade Morbius crossover like from the animated series as a kid or in the comic books or anything like that. So with that being said, Morbius, don't go see this one. Zuka 2 out.
Feel like they tracking me. Yo, let me get on one. Nah, go get your tracks up. Homie, can I steal some? Homie, you can't stack up. My brother, can you shout me? You're barking up the wrong tree. My dog, why do you doubt me? Cause you can't do shit without me.
Real like the radio and never play it, but that's cool. The enemy's supposed to hate it.